There is no poop in this story. Only waifus. The Waifu Army. Wow, that's gonna make a great thumbnail. Hello, one and all. It is I, Arif, returning from my long sabbatical from writing. Yeah, and I love all of Arif's stuff, honestly. If you haven't watched the Guitar Beard saga, please do. He's a good boy. We kick it in the Discord quite often. I've had a busy couple of months and a distinct lack of inspiration to write. This introduction is to explain what I'm about to do, because it is an asinine task that I chose to attempt and will most likely fail at. I've been embroiled in reading Lovecraft and Poe recently. As such, I have an itch that I need to scratch, and I will attempt to write my following encounter with some beards in the style of Lovecraft and Poe, who both focused on telling, not showing, and excessive adjective use. They also had a style that could be described as self-absorbed, so it is quite possible that the following will be an insufferable mess. It's also possible that it'll be kinda neat. So, without further ado, let me tell you the tale of the Waifu Army. I read Poe a lot when I was a bit more of an edgy boy. Now I've graduated and I'm an edgy man reading texts on Reddit. All right, that's fine, let's go. In my younger days, while attending university, I found solace in the fleeting fantasy of LARPing, a hobby of odd appearance and providence, grown men and women running around, beating each other with large foam-covered pieces of plastic piping. This hobby was a good distraction from the lonesome hours that I would spend in my apartment. For a time, upon finishing university, I continued to partake in the activity despite my lack of scholastic involvement with the school. In time, though, that group was dissolved from within by the degenerate political intrigue that seemed to permeate that group. I attempted to find other activities of a physical nature with which to distract my growing anxieties as friends left after college. Eventually, I found myself embroiled in a different type of LARPing. The LARPing of the modern era, as some might see it. I found myself playing a game known as airsoft. Kinda sick, honestly. Yeah, that'll get you out of the house. This hobby has intrigued me. On the surface, it was as simple as buying some plastic replicas of modern firearms mass-produced in Taiwanese factories and shooting them at others who also were not the savviest with their disposable income. There were many different games played in fields and abandoned warehouses which had been repurposed for the pastime of flinging small plastic balls at one another. Oh, that's a different kind of warehouse. I found pleasure in this activity, and it also served as a reasonable location to meet others who might purchase my wares. At this time in my life, I was still what I generously refer to as a salesman, though others might call my chosen profession at the time abhorrent, hedonistic self-interest, but I will not begrudge them that perception. Hey, you gotta do what you do, you know? What puts food on the table? For many years, I partook of this hobby and met few who I would consider generally unlikable. There were, of course, those men who arrived in full military kit, with overly serious modifications to their toy firearms, men of advanced age with enough disposable income to fund a soup kitchen in Ethiopia. They would call themselves operators, hinting at some higher level of effectiveness on the imaginary battlefield known as airsoft. There were also cheaters who denied the rules of the game for the sake of some abstract glory that escaped my mind.
I got you, Cartman! You didn't hit me, Kyle! The BBs bounce off a leaf or something.
If you win at airsoft, you win at real life. Hated by all, and most loathsome of all types who played the game, were those known as speed softers. Speed softers are often held to some degree of disdain in the game of airsoft due to their obnoxious traits. Speed softers were usually young players with toy guns modified in odd and esoteric ways, allowing them to fire a large number of small projectiles in little time. Their equipment was always set to the highest possible settings to inflict the most pain, and they were afflicted by a malady similar to that of main character syndrome. Atop all of this, they often embodied the worst traits of the operators and the cheaters alike. Wow, I don't know anything about this. We're getting into the deep lore of this culture. All right. And so well written. Pack me up. I'm in. Let's do it. I'd met a few of these individuals in the past, and I did find them to be somewhat bothersome in their escapades. Whispered on the lips of those who had been playing longer than I was the legend of the Waifu Army, a group of younger college kids who would arrive in vehicles adorned with the images of cartoon women. Their gear, outfits, and accessories also bore these images. God, that's good cringe. I had heard rumors of them occasionally frequenting an indoor airsoft field known as the Depot. I frequented this location, and I had never once encountered this fabled group. I thought them to be just an urban legend. I thought them some collective hallucination, shared by the trauma of 1,000 busted fingernails at the hands of other unnamed speedsofters. Some ghoulish phantasm created by the gruffer older veterans whose disdain for speedsofters was only rivaled by their disdain for losing. So, one cold day in September, I had decided to venture to the Depot to blow off some steam from a particularly rough day. My mood had been dragged low by a particularly rough exchange with a close friend, and fantasy violence seemed like a healthy remedy. As it is. Upon my arrival, I noticed the odd modified Hondas in the parking lot. With much curiosity, I exited my vehicle and inspected them. The vehicles had been wrapped as though they were rolling advertisements for HoloLive. The cartoonish women that populate the VTuber genre of entertainment staring back at me with their lifeless eyes from tinted windows. Vanity license plates displayed the names of these figures on many of the vehicles. I took in the odd sight before me, frozen, wondering if this was the day that the fabled Waifu Army had come to darken the Depot. With some effort, I shook myself from my contemplative trance and gathered the toy guns that I would be bringing inside with me. I entered, and as I went to pay my entrance fee, I caught first sight of the squat, rotund forms of the Waifu Army. They sat in a corner playing a card game, laughing loudly and often shouting mangled Japanese at each other. They numbered at least 5 in total, all of them having a particularly unwashed quality to them. Greasy faces, hair, and pimples seemed inhumanely illuminated by the old fluorescent lighting in the staging area. Mangled Japanese like, Nani Baka! I know what you're getting at. After paying for my entry and purchasing a new tub of BBs, I filled my magazines while observing this group. They seemed like young men frozen at age 15, despite them being well into their 20s. I was dragged back internally to my days in secondary school, reminded of the kids that belonged to the anime club that my school graciously allowed to exist. In those man-children, I saw the same qualities that I remembered from so long ago. The loud laughter, the messy snacks spread all over the table, the odd over-dramatization of a children's card game, screeched at volumes not acceptable for outdoor environments, let alone an indoor one. Despite the crowded staging area, it seemed many of the other patrons were giving the Waifu Army a wide berth. I found this confusing until it was time to play the game. I'd been placed on the red team, which also held the 5 members of the Waifu Army. While we stood on our side of the arena, I noticed through my helmet a putrid smell.
A smelly smell that smells smelly.
I wish I was more surprised by that. It was the smell of clothes never washed. It was a smell not dissimilar to that of standing pond water and vinegar, a combination of bodily odors and the mold and mildew that found sustenance in such garments. It was overpowering, and it caused my dry eyes to start watering reflexively. I've smelled many horrid things. Unkempt homes, infected cysts, the rot of flesh, but all pales in comparison to the body odor of the Waifu Army. That's quite a comparison. You ever smelled a dead person, bro? That's quite unpleasant. You're painting the picture. After the first round of play, I noticed their smell growing even fouler as their corpulent bodies began to soak these foul garments with fresh sweat. Oh no. Their new sebaceous secretions coalescing with the fetid garments, creating a new smell of reactivated antediluvian funk and freshly secreted bodily fluids. Thanks, I hate it. One particularly odious member of the Waifu Army smelled almost exclusively of urine. I could not tell you if this was due to a health concern or poor hygiene, however, so I reserve judgment for that particular individual to the reader. I mean, it might be a health concern, but that doesn't win any pity points with me. Get it taken care of, bro. You know it's a problem, right, bro? Anyways, after some games, the referee had decided to mix up the teams for fairness. I desperately pleaded to be placed on the other team and was graciously moved to the blue team. Now stuck with try-hard operators, I heard them speaking of their grievances. The Waifu Army, by their accounting, was cheating. They weren't calling themselves as dead when they were hit with a small plastic projectile. This was causing a non-insignificant amount of frustration among the older and more experienced operators. Knowing them to be sore losers at times, I did not immediately believe their claims. It was not until the next game began that I had noticed that they were in fact cheaters of the highest order. Their lack of shame clearly did not only extend to their personal hygiene, but also to playing fair. Many times I had seen one of the flabby members of the Waifu Army flinch in reaction to being shot, but continue firing anyways. Many of us pleaded with the referees to keep a more proactive eye on them, but these pleas fell on stony and uncaring ears. I guess it's one of those things like they paid their money, so who really cares? You guys deal with it if it really bugs you that much. Meet him out in the parking lot. Eventually, a break was called and we all returned to the staging area. The Waifu Army's odor had grown to an unimaginable scope, permeating the entirety of the building. I'm impressed, honestly. It's really unfortunate, but also it's a spectacle. They lounged in their marked corner while watching some cartoon on a laptop that they had brought with them. Many of them clasped dirty and tattered body pillows as a child might cling on to a beloved stuffed animal. Ugh. With a nauseous exhaustion and frustration, I went outside to smoke a cig. Out here, I heard the operators discussing what to do about the cheaters. After a back and forth that included the possibility of just clubbing the weirdos with our toy weapons, many of the operators went to their vehicles and retrieved weapons typically reserved for outdoor fields. They were replicas of large machine guns with insane rates of fire, weapons described by enthusiasts as producing accuracy by volume. Spray and pray. I excitedly sprinted to my car and retrieved a device that also served that purpose. It was modeled to resemble a 40mm grenade launcher, though its actual function was more similar to that of a large short-barrel shotgun. There you go. This is how we solve problems. I took it and I loaded one of the canisters with propellant and BBs. It was tested and passed by the weary clerk who watched the Waifu Army slowly litter their corner of the staging area. They seemed to be feverishly terraforming the staging area into a beard nest. And they can work quick when they want to. I went to a table and started loading the canisters for my plastic toy grenade launcher. I often peered over to the corpulent cavalcade of chaos and contemplated who I would be targeting in my next game. All of them. Also, I love the alliteration. One of the dirtier in their troop was gnawing on the corner of his body pillow as he stared glassily into the laptop. That would be my Corey, I had decided. I scanned as my operator teammates loaded up similarly hateful armaments as my own. A sinister sense of justice spread through my being as I contemplated the coming game. When we were called to the arena, I did my best to stay out of sight and fire from the shadows and as close as possible, and there was no cheating this time. Every time I fired a wall of BBs from my grenade launcher into the torso of one of the Waifu Army, they screamed in pain and walked back to the respawn. Fake war had changed, and after a few rounds, another break had been called. The Waifu Army limped to their corner, their dirt-caked flesh welted and bloodied by the onslaught of high volume and or high velocity toy weaponry. You think they're gonna get the lesson eventually and go home, or is this just gonna escalate from here? You know what comes of blood for blood, Hector.
Sangre por sangre.
They complained to the staff, sure, but this fell upon the ears of the flat-affected staff, who had more experience with this crawling compendium of cartoon enthusiasts. Yeah, also, they definitely don't get paid enough to care, all right? Handle this yourself, like I said. I celebrated outside with some of the operators over some of my personal provisions. A tall man with his young daughter walked over to greet us. The two were well known at the depot. The man, a veteran of the war in Iraq, and his daughter, an enthusiastic 8-year-old who braved the BBs for some quality time with her father. They were a known and beloved quantity at the depot, and we greeted them stonily as they approached. We put away our various sundries and went in with them. We began to warn the veteran of the Waifu Army's presence. In the distraction, his daughter had wandered over to inspect the odious congregation. Oh, the curiosity of children. You know, curiosity killed the cat. Come back here, kid. None of us had even seen her go until we heard the frightened scream of a young girl, which stopped abruptly. Almost as one, we looked over to see that the girl had had her scream stifled as one member of the Waifu Army placed his body pillow over her face. Bro, can we beat him to death with a lead pipe yet? Is that an option? The veteran ran over, red-faced and boiling with rage. What are you doing to my daughter? He screamed. I and some of the operators followed. The veteran freed his daughter from the greasy clasp of the man, seemingly smothering her. In the process, the plastic table that they sat at was jarred sideways, and we all saw what had most likely disturbed the young girl. Playing on the screen of the laptop was the most depraved type of animation. Oh, this is unfortunate. Why? Why? In public? Oh! The headphones he had on were pulled from the audio jack, and the sounds, most abhorrent to me and many others in the staging area, pierced the commotion. Dude, I hate this. This is the worst thing ever. Please tell me they get banned for life, at least, or banned from life, ideally. The uncomforting audio of that horrific adult anime was drowned out by the sound of a raging scream from the veteran as he pushed his daughter aside and began to assault the adult animation enthusiast. He screamed obscenity and called the man words that I will not transcribe here, for they are foul, vulgar words that would otherwise be unforgivable. Honestly, you've just scarred my child. You're leaving this altercation on a stretcher, if not in a body bag. Eventually, some of the larger operators were able to pull the enraged veteran from the now semi-conscious member of the Waifu Army. He shrieked and flailed wildly, as if intent on finishing what he started. Eventually, police and emergency services arrived. Many gave statements to the authorities, and despite the severity of the beating thrust upon that most foul member of the Waifu Army, the veteran was simply asked to leave. Bro, but what about the beards? They get to stay and watch their dirty cartoons? In front of the kids? What's logic? The beard that the veteran had beaten into jelly, however, would later face judgment. Oh good, I spoke too soon. He would be charged with a crime related to the distribution of illicit images to a minor and would be placed on one of those lists which prospective homeowners check before signing a check. From that day forward, the Waifu Army was never again seen at the depot, although they still appeared at some outdoor fields that tolerated their antics, though they seemed to be permanently missing a member who was most unwelcome from that day forward. Word spread fast among the airsoft community of this particular man, and what he did was not easily forgotten by those who heard of his disgusting proclivities and behaviors. Honestly, he got off light, dude. That kid didn't deserve none of that. This is still kind of a sad ending for me. I suppose it is what it is, however, and that is the tale of how I met the Waifu Army for the first time. I've wanted to tell this story for a while, but there was never really enough meat on the bones to really flesh it out into a thing, I decided it would be good fodder for this very experimental type of neckbeard storytelling. It's a story with a horrific ending, and it felt like the perfect one to try something different with. After rereading it, I honestly give myself a D-. It's not great. I don't think I achieved what I set out to achieve, and I personally feel that the story suffers because of it. Regardless, I did enjoy writing it, and that's the most important thing. And I've been told that I need to do more stuff just for me. So I hope to you, the reader, that it was at least palatable, and thank you for reading. Honestly, I thought that was a really good story. I love, like, flowery, wordsy, alliterative things. And when alongside all of that, you still bring in the cringe, that's a beautiful thing to me. The Waifu Army, definitely a terrible group of individuals, but it doesn't seem like they leave the house all that often, so I don't know, maybe you're safe, at least for a little while. Who I'm really concerned about keeping safe is that kid. God damn, dude. I feel really bad about it, but I don't know, nothing a bit of therapy can't fix, maybe. Hopefully. I hope that you still enjoyed the story, regardless of the horrible happenings. If you did, I hope you like, comment, subscribe, do all them things. Maybe share it around if you're real brave. We got links in the description, Twitter, Twitch, Discord, TikTok, whatever you want. Thank you also to my channel members, my gorgeous patrons, helping me to get through every single month. Thank you so much, you guys. I hope you'll all come back, join us again tomorrow, see what we got a-cooking. Keep yourself safe out there, wash your hands, and of course, always remember, friends, that you are loved, you are worthy, and you definitely deserve it. I shall see you in the next one, and until then, bye-bye.
It's only worth it if you work for it. I won't stop till they hear me now. I won't stop till I wear the crown.